So this week I want to cover a roof over, or if you just have 2 layers of shingles. So I'm going to go over how to identify if you do, the easiest way. I'm going to tell you what it means if you do, maybe the added additional cost as far as removal, what happens if you want to go this route, and if you already have shingles and you want to do a roof over the top. I'm going to touch on metal as well because it is a very common practice to actually go over shingles. And then as far as your other roofing material types, it's pretty much a no-go when it comes to roofing over. There's a few exceptions when it comes to wood shake, but this is going to be very nuanced. You need to stick very strictly to code to make sure it's being done properly. So I won't dive in too much about that because that's really going to be in a case-by-case basis. So starting with shingles, the way you're going to be able to tell if you have 2 layers of shingles is if you have any valleys, so where the slopes meet an inward angle, it's going to be very thick. So valleys are already typically going to be a shingle over a shingle application. So if it's almost inch and a half thick where you're seeing 4 layers, that's a pretty good way to be able to identify if you have 2 layers. Also, you can throw up a ladder at your eaves where your gutters are located, peel up that first layer of shingles. There should be a first course and a starter strip, but if you lift that up and you see more than that, another layer, perhaps maybe you have an architectural style shingle and then underneath you see a 3-tab, it's going to be a pretty solid indicator that you actually have 2 layers of shingles up on your roof. One common myth I do want to bust is it legal to do a roof over in Georgia? Believe it or not, it actually is. It's just not a common occurrence, and I'll go over a couple reasons why you should really stay away from it. The only way you're allowed to do a roof over in Georgia is if the roofing system that's currently on there, the shingles are in good shape. So most people are trying to do this to save costs, meaning they're usually waiting till the end of a roof's lifespan to then do a roof over, and that's exactly when you're actually not supposed to do it. There's a lot of issues that can also occur when you want to do a roof over. Number one, you already have thousands of nails in your roofing system. Now you're trying to make sure you don't overlap and hit more nails on top of that, making sure you're actually using long enough nails to be able to penetrate far enough through the decking. Now that you have 2 layers on your roof, as you can imagine, if your attic isn't perfectly well ventilated, it's definitely going to have more problems now. 2 layers is going to not allow that roof to breathe properly, and it's going to greatly shorten the lifespan of that roof. Also, if you look at a lot of manufacturer guidelines, this is definitely not a recommended installation. So what happens is if you do a roof over, check with your manufacturer, but 99 out of 100 times they are not going to give you a warranty on top of that. So I don't know about you and me, but if I'm already going to spend even 70% of the cost of a new roof, I would definitely want a warranty on that product. And the last thing I wanted to touch on when it comes to roof over is one of the issues you may not be able to tell is what shape of condition that wood is in. Sometimes you can tell just by walking in the attic and looking around. A lot of times if it's not accessible, you're really rolling the dice. So you may be trying to roof over a surface that is no longer solid sheathing, that could be rotten, and if you do that, obviously the fasteners aren't going to hold and those shingles are just going to blow off the next time you have a windstorm. Now, if you already have 2 layers existing, what's involved in making sure that you get put back right? If it's insurance related, that's going to be a little bit different. A lot of times they'll cover the cost for the additional labor and then also the additional dumpster fees that's involved with removing 2 layers of shingles. But if you're just going strictly retail, know that if somebody in the past chose to put 2 layers on your roof, now you're incurring an additional labor cost for the removal. You're going to need another dumpster depending on how big the roof is, maybe even 2 if it's a larger roof. So that is going to be an additional cost that's incurred to a homeowner who already has 2 layers of shingles on the roof. So those are a couple reasons why we want to definitely stay away from ever putting 2 layers of shingles on a roof in general. A lot of the other times when I see this is when somebody does an add-on to the home. So instead of them actually ripping off the decking, when they're tying in, let's say they're building an addition onto their home and they're tying into the existing roofing system, a lot of times they won't actually remove the roof decking and frame right into the rafters. They'll just plop that frame right onto the existing roof decking, right on top of those shingles. And as you can imagine, it's going to create an uneven surface. And then even when we go to re-roof those surfaces, we can run into problems because we're trying to tear out shingles from underneath wood. So it creates a very uneven surface, which is going to affect the application of the underlayment, the leak barrier. So those are other things. If you are considering doing addition, making sure that they're taking the extra time and they're quoting that into the job to make sure that they're doing it properly. So while it saves you a little bit of money now, it's not going to save you a headache or potential leaks going into the future. Now I'm going to touch on metal. So when it comes to metal, it's very common to just go ahead and go over an existing roofing shingle. The same rules are really going to apply to metal as it is going to shingles. So again, don't wait until the shingle is at the complete end of its lifespan to go ahead and throw metal over it. Now, if you're buying a home with shingles and you want to go metal and say that shingles 10 years or less, that's not a problem. A lot of the people, when they do this, instead of having that additional removal fee, what they'll do is they'll install something called battens, which is 1x2 slat boards that you're just going to install horizontally before you bring the pans on top of that. So in a lot of the times, this is actually a good application to install metal, especially if you're in really hot areas. It's actually going to give the metal roof a little bit more breathing room. Metal panels get very, very hot, and if it's not directly on that wood deck, it's going to create a little bit more ventilation to keep that attic a little bit cooler. Just know, years down the road, when you do go to remove everything, it's going to be a bit more of additional labor and dumpster fee when it comes to ripping it back down to the bare decking. That also means you can potentially run into the same problems. We're making sure that if you can check everything that's going on in the attic beforehand, making sure you are. That way, when you're going to put the battens down before you install the metal, everything you're screwing down to is just structurally sound and can actually hold all the material properly. Just a quick video kind of going over the nuances when it comes to having 2 layers of shingles on your roof, if it's possible, how to tell, some things you may want to consider if you do choose to go this route, which I highly recommend staying away from, and then what's involved with doing that. Thanks for watching, guys.